Bambro back with some Grand Tactician Civil War, our CSA campaign in the 1.06 beta. Okay. If you're new to the channel, if you're new to the series, this campaign is... It's not exactly a test campaign, but we're taking our time in this thing, kind of going through and exploring the ramifications of running the economy and managing the armies and everything. With the 1.06 update, which will soon go live, probably before the end of May. That's just a guess. I don't know that for sure, but it's coming sooner rather than later. And there's a lot of changes. And we've talked about tons of them throughout this campaign. If you haven't seen prior episodes, I will link the playlist at the end. But if you like what we're doing here, leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even a subscribe. But I hope you enjoy the episode. Okay. Just to mention a couple of comments from the last couple of episodes. Aren't too many. One person mentioned, hey, I'm a little surprised at kind of how many of your battles at this point in the campaign are still pretty small scale. Just a few brigades per side. To which I can only reply, yeah, it is a little unusual. And I don't know what to say about that. I don't know if that's a 1.06 norm. Sample size, it's the only campaign I know. Or if it's just something weird with kind of the way that the Union AI happens to be putting its armies together in this particular campaign. Don't know. And we don't have them all visible on the map right this second. But they've got a pretty big army here near Washington. They've got the Army of Northeastern Virginia still, which is at 31,000, and then right over here somewhere, not quite visible, or at least the last time we could see it anyway, was the Department of Pennsylvania at about 19,000. And those are pretty typical numbers, right, that one would typically see in prior versions of the game. But a lot of these armies that they're building out west are fairly small. Here's a 10,000, and these are estimates, of course. These are intel, so they could be a little off. But Army of Indiana, 10,000. Army of the Mississippi, 4,000. Now they have fought and they've taken some casualties. Army of the Ohio, currently 9,000. Of course, they just now lost a battle where they lost several thousand men. There's another force here, not visible, that's probably about 6,000 or 7,000 that we fought recently. And so, yeah, it does seem like maybe a little bit more than normal. The Union AI is building more but smaller forces, which in any individual battle isn't that big a deal. But big picture, it's starting to cause some problems, because even if we win a fairly, or even just an outright easy battle, we still take some casualties. And he's got multiple armies that he's just kind of flinging in there, kind of tag teaming me. And anyway, more on that in a second. So in any case, yeah, that observation is very true, and it is a little bit unusual compared to what we've seen in the past for this game. And we'll just see how that continues to go. I mentioned in a recent episode about, you can either pursue... Different topic. In talking about economy, particularly industrial subsidies, I had mentioned, and agricultural subsidies, and I had mentioned, you can look at it two ways. You can either pour your subsidies into building additional buildings, factories, ironworks, foundries, farms on the agricultural side, mills on the agricultural side, or one can instead put those subsidies into some new projects that increase the productivity of existing buildings of that type. And it's kind of, and a player could kind of go either route on those. And which one was best, I don't know. But would they both work? And I thought probably yes. We got a fairly lengthy comment that very clearly is of the opinion that building extra buildings is definitely the much better way to go. And the commenter laid out a step-by-step lengthy kind of explanation of why he perceives it that way. And frankly, I found it pretty convincing, right? I think it's probably correct that the better way to go is to build additional buildings. Like just say if you have 10 farms, hypothetically, we've got more than that. But if you have 10 farms, you can either increase the output of those farms by whatever the level is. I don't know, because the project doesn't tell you. It'll tell you after you've built it. But let's say that you increase them 10%. And I don't know if it's that high. It might be 5%. The amount of extra crops that you would get simply from building an 11th farm is going to be much more than that, is the argument. And I think that's probably true. It makes a lot of sense to me. So, that was a very good comment, and I would say others should go back an episode or two and read it, because I think there's a lot of good thoughts in it. That said, at the time that I was talking about that, I got off into talking about that because of this particular project called farm mechanization. All right? And what this does is it increases farm output and available volunteers, right? Now, if we're just talking about farms, right? If this project was only increases farm output, then yeah, it's probably better to build more farms. But that's not all it does. It also gives us available volunteers. And in this case, I said earlier, the project doesn't tell you. I've already done a level of this one. It gives a 10% crop production boost, which is an important distinction. Farms produce more than just crops. They also produce livestock and I think a couple other things. So this project only boosts the crops output, not the livestock, which I think are the two main ones that go into food production. However, 10% boost to volunteers per level. That's pretty huge. And in a moment, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I already have some, but I've got there's kind of stuff looming where that's going to become even more critical. Okay. Anyway, it was a good comment, and I would encourage people to go back. I don't remember which episode yesterday it was. But it was good stuff. Okay, I have two manpower issues. One is immediate and needs to be addressed right this moment, or pretty soon, and then another one is still a couple of months away. The first one is, as I was just talking about, these smaller Union armies, we have fought several battles right in this area, in the Ohio Valley. Some in southern Ohio and southern Indiana, some in Kentucky. And bottom line, this particular force here, which is Albert Sidney Johnson's army, but it is Hardee's Corps, which began as the Army of Tennessee. The Army of Tennessee is now larger and includes a couple corps. But this particular force has fought, I think, 5 battles over the past 2 months in game time. And they've gotten worn down. They were once at about 18,000, and now they're down to almost down to 13,000, and some of these brigades are starting to get pretty small. And I need to do something about that. That's the first issue. And I've got kind of a little plan in place for that we'll implement that once time gets rolling. But here's the bigger issue. And frankly, I don't quite know what's going to happen or how I'm going to deal with it. Big picture, all right? This is a Summer 61 start. And in Summer 61, the CSA starts with 12-month contracts. And all of the forces in the starter armies on day one are on those 12-month contracts. There aren't any 3-month contracts because the Confederacy tree doesn't even have a 3-month option. The Confederacy's Militia Act 1 is 12 months. And therefore, last year, or earlier this year I should say, we're still in 1861, we did not have the problem that the Union had when all their 3-month contracts expired. That big contract expiration, which is going to affect most of our military, because most of these forces were already in existence at campaign start, that's going to come in April 1862. And we've got about, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6 corps in the Army. There's 2 in Virginia. There's 1 in Western Virginia. There's 2 in Kentucky, or the Kentucky area. One's actually in Ohio. And there's 1 in Missouri. Of those 6, 5 of them have campaign start units. Of those 5, 4 of them have an overwhelming majority of campaign start units. The only corps in the whole military that is completely free, that have all 24-month contract troops, is the new D.H. Hill Corps coming up from Tennessee to Louisville. That's it. Every other corps in the Army has got at least some. Right? Garnett's Corps in Beauregard's Army has some campaign start units in it, but also has a fair number of 24-month guys too. But the other 4 corps, the 2 in Virginia, Hardee's Corps in Ohio, and the Missouri Corps, are almost entirely composed of 12-month contract guys that were in existence on a campaign start, or a few units that I recruited very early when I was still on 12-month contracts. Now, none of this is new. This has been a dynamic in the game for our Summer 61 start forever. So far, what I've said is not new. This is what's new. Let's just go up here and look at this Manpower tooltip. Now look at the bottom. Estimated reenlistment ratio 10%. In every other campaign I've played in this game up till now, up through version 1.05, a typical reenlistment ratio is somewhere between the mid-40s and the low to mid-50s, depending on how well the war is going and what state support is. But basically, kind of a default reenlistment ratio is about 50% plus or minus 5 to 10%. Which means when a unit's contracts, let's say you have a 2,000 man brigade and a 50% reenlistment ratio, its contract expires. 50% of those troops re-enlist, and those 2,000 men that 2,000 man brigade becomes a 1,000 man brigade. Well, so you can see, with a 10% reenlistment ratio, I'm looking at a 2,000 man brigade becoming a 200 man brigade. So it looks to me that in April 1862, 4 months from now, my entire military is going to evaporate. That's what that number's telling me. I don't know if that is a new 1.06 mechanic. Did I overlook a project or a policy somewhere? Is this supposed to happen? Or is that a bug? I don't know the answer to that. Now, this reenlistment ratio is primarily determined by state support. Okay, so let's look at the state support. It's pretty good. We're deep red. North Carolina 99%, Tennessee 98%. You get the picture. 100% in Texas, 100% in Louisiana, 100% in Alabama. State support is not driving that. It's a little bit low. Basically our lowest original state, Virginia, even that's 91%. It's still off a little bit because they've got Grafton and Wheeling. The only Confederate state where support is low is Kentucky, 64%, and we've been talking a lot about that during the campaign. And that's because Kentucky was Union, and we got it to secede, and there was a lot of Union control over this state at the time, and so support dropped. We kind of stabilized it, and it's slowly creeping up again. And then, it's not a Confederate state, but we do have a lot of Missouri troops in this army over here, and Missouri is at 70%. But even with 70% Missouri, 64% in Kentucky, and those aren't unusual numbers either. I have absolutely no idea for a bona fide game reason for my reenlistment ratio to be so low. Which makes me wonder if it's a new mechanic in 1.06 that is new to us. I'm interested to see what other people are seeing in their campaigns. Or interested to hear that, to see if that's kind of happening to everybody in 1.06. Or is there something dreadfully wrong that I've done wrong in my policies and projects? I don't think so. Not that explains that. Or is it just a bug? And either it's a bug that is going to cause my army to overnight become a hollow shell of itself, in which case I'm going to have serious problems in 4 months. Or maybe the number's just wrong and actually they're going to re-enlist at a perfectly typical rate, just like any other campaign. I don't know. But, no. It won't be this episode, but a few episodes from now, things could get very, very interesting. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and roll time so that we can get. We're just finishing a battle here outside Cincinnati, and the armies are actually still engaged. Mansfield still needs to retreat, so I'm gonna at least roll time long enough to do that, so that I can then do things with the Army of Tennessee. Right now, I cannot. Somebody just got somewhere. McCulloch. Oh, right. I had moved the Missouri Corps a little bit just to fiddle with their supply routes. Okay, they're disengaged now. Right. So after the fighting that Hardee has done recently, he's right on the boundary between orange and yellow readiness. Understandable. He's got plenty of ammo. He's got that, but he doesn't have any food or forage, and he's at 54% supply flow, despite sitting in the midst of a major city, which I think is kind of weird. We do have a hospital here now. That's good. That's a captured Union hospital. Matter of fact, let's just make sure that that's actually working for us. I'm sure it is. Yeah, okay. So that should help replenish some of his casualties. He's got 1,100 disabled, of whom only 282 are actually wounded. Most of his disabled are sick because it's winter and he's been running around moving. So I would kind of like for him to stop moving. However, I'm kind of feeling like maybe he does need to move some more during the winter. There is another force over here that I would kind of like to chase away, but I don't know if Hardee's really in the shape to do that right now. But let's look at Hardee's brigades here. Okay. We've got Little, Tennessee troops, 1,000 men. Huger, Georgia troops, little over 600. Two different Andersons, both of whom commanding Florida brigades. One's got about they've both got about 700 men. I think the first thing I'm going to do, and oh, by the way, Florida has very low manpower back home. Less than 400 in the volunteer pool in Florida. We can see that this way. Florida, 378 men in the recruit pool. So given that, and they're trying to plus up two different units. I am going to combine these two brigades of Florida troops. So this Anderson comes over here. All right. So we got almost 1,500 men under Richard Anderson, and they're okay. So it went with it kept the rifle muskets. That's one step. I think I'd like to get some more troops to plus up this Tennessee brigade and this Georgia brigade. Now they'll fill over time, but I think I want to get guys into these a little bit faster than that. These two brigades over here, Pierce's division, they're okay. Almost 2,200 men here. They're about 2,000 men apiece, which in the context of our current situation, those are pretty big. And then Frost Brigade here, who are also Tennessee troops. They're over 2,000. I thought about combining Frost and Little's brigade, but we would actually lose a few troops that way because Frost is over 2,000 and Little is a hair over 1,000. So I would lose a couple hundred troops just by combining them. So I'm not going to do that, especially since Frost brigade is kind of okay as it is. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to recruit a small Georgia brigade and a small Tennessee brigade down in Nashville. And as soon as those arrive, I will send them to Johnston, and then those new recruit brigades then will not stay independent. I am just going to fold them right into these two brigades. And then finally, I'm going to recruit another brigade that will remain independent in to get us back to 7 infantry brigades, which is kind of the standard that I've been using so far in this campaign. Okay, so in order to do that, let's go to Western Department and let's recruit. I need to put a cut in for just a few minutes. Well, just a moment for you. I need to go do something for a second. Be right back. Okay, so here at the Western Department, I want to recruit a small Tennessee brigade, which we have people to do that, recruits to do that. A small Georgia brigade. And then I want another independent brigade. These two are just going to fold into existing brigades in Johnson's army. So, and then I want another brigade. And I want them kind of in the west. So yeah, Alabama. We'll do another Alabama brigade here. And I'm going to do medium for that. In this brigade, I can actually just go ahead and arm them with something. I've got just enough Springfield rifles for that. I've also got some Mississippis. I'll go with the Mississippis. I like to give the Mississippi brigades green uniforms. So they kind of, oops, didn't mean to do that. There we go. Just so they stick out better on the battlefield. And I don't care who these two commanders are, but I do care about this one. Let's see who we got here. Forney. It's not bad. Fame will come with combat. And he's 2 stars and everything else. I got worse colonels. Forney can stay in command. He's even an infantry guy. The game picked well this time. Okay, so these 3 are earmarked for Hardee's Corps. 13 days, 18 days, 12 days. That's not bad. Okay, that is that little situation not immediately addressed, but we've got a short-term solution in place to kind of help out Hardee's Corps. That's good. Okay, now, looking ahead, we've got 4 months, not quite 4 months, to kind of address what's going to happen in April. We don't need this medical thing anymore. The first things first is, I've already been talking about it, but in my mind it even further reinforces that we're over the next 3 months, we've got to recruit a lot of troops. And not to grow the military, just to get into spring of 62, trying to maintain what we have. And it looks to me that, you know, there's 4 corps that are going to more or less evaporate Starting to get a few 24-month volunteers in. You know what? I might have just messed up. When those small brigades come from Nashville and I combine them with those existing ground down brigades, are those combined brigades going to be on 12-month or 24-month contracts? I don't know the answer to that. I think instead of dragging the new brigades over on top of the small ones, maybe when that time comes in a couple weeks, I better drag the small ones over top of the new ones. I don't know what's going to happen there. Okay. But at any rate, we do have one unaffected corps in the West. So at least there will be something in Kentucky after the big manpower doom occurs. And there will be some troops in Western Virginia. There are some not all, but there are some 24-month troops in Beauregard's army here. But this Lee's army, that's almost exclusively 12-month contract guys that are going to go away this summer this spring and summer, and the same in Missouri. So I feel like I have to create a new corps in the East within the next couple months, and probably a new corps for the West, for the far West, the Trans-Mississippi, during the same time frame. And right now, I could probably recruit one corps now. I certainly cannot recruit two. So let's take a look at our projects. See how we're doing on these. Okay. We've had some politics add up. This isn't anything new. Is kind of similar decisions in the past. I'm not real interested in suppress and occupation because we don't have any occupied states and don't plan to. I mean, we've got a couple of cities in Ohio and Indiana, but I don't see either of these as being a good use of subsidies. Administration reform, increase the research of policies and acts. I think that's a good one. But I think I'm going to go railroad construction again, because when I do get around to building the Cumberland Gap Railroad into Kentucky, I want that thing to go pretty quick. And oh, by the way, given the manpower situation that may occur this spring and summer, this campaign might go on quite a long time after all. So that is becoming more relevant. I'm going to go ahead and take the railroad construction. Building, just kind of prepping ahead for building that railroad, which I think is important in Kentucky. Do we have anything else on the civil side? No. But I'm going to let ag build back up, and I'm going to take another level of farm mechanization just as soon as I can. Do I care about civil order? I don't think so. Further decreases negative impact on support from military actions. It doesn't come right out and say it, but I think this means mitigating the support loss from bounties and from the draft. Which we do not have implemented yet. And yeah, I'm not taking this now. However, as I'm saying that, it now occurs to me I typically in the past, I don't take draft and I don't take bounties because of the support and the morale effects in the armies. If that 10% reenlistment rate is real, I might be taking draft or bounties in the in a few months. That will be later on. On the military side, we have several military projects available. And I more than once, I have gone back and forth. Legacy rifles are not legacy rifles. There's arguments for, there's arguments against. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I got Springfields, and I've decided I'm going to do this. I'm close enough. I'm going to go ahead and wait, and I'm going to take Confederate rifles. That gets us Fayetteville. That gets us two more rifle categories: Fayetteville's and Richmond's, and they're both pretty good. And they're long ranged. One of them is a 500, and one of them is a 450 range rifle. And so I think waiting a little bit longer for these is probably better than taking Legacy now, which gets us Mississippi's and Plains rifles. Now, those older rifles are more accurate. Mississippi's and Plains are more accurate rifles than Fayetteville's and Richmond's. However, I think we will probably be able to buy more with better delivery dates with Confederate rifles than we will with Legacies. Do I know that for sure? No, I don't. But it strikes me as that's probably the case. Anyway, so I'm waiting on these, and I'm not taking cavalry carbines. I'm going to take the Confederate rifles, and then I'm going to let military fill back up and wait for the medium range carbines, which are, I think, going to give Jocelyn's, Maynard's, Merrill's, that kind of, it doesn't specifically tell you, but I think those are the range of carbines that we're going to get from this. And those are going to be better ranged. These cavalry carbines, that's going to give us like Burnsides, which are rapid fire. I mean, they're way better than what we have. However, they're short ranged. Whereas these carbines are typically like in the 300 to 350 range, I think. I think that's what I'm going to do there. And then I'm also tempted to go right back and take another level of recruitment, which I could do right now. But the other piece of the puzzle is I'm going to have to recruit a lot of troops, but I'm going to have to arm them too. It's still tempting. Nope, I'm going to hold off, and I'm going to take these others up here that I mentioned. I took cast artillery, which gives us smoothbores and some rifles. You get the 14-pound James out of these. I think for now I'm just going to go with that, and Jameses are going to be our rifles for the time being. I think getting an additional source of infantry weapons and some decent weapons for our cav and more recruitment levels, I think those are a bigger deal than getting Parrots or 3-inch ordnance with these projects. Now, if we did not have 14-pound James and cast artillery was only smoothbores, it would be different. But since we're getting the James, I'm going to hold off on these for a while. Maybe for the whole campaign. I don't know. So that's kind of where we are with projects. So I'm going to let military go ahead and fill up a little bit more until we get the Fayettevilles and Richmonds. That will probably occur well before the end of December. Right. Let's keep time rolling. Mansfield's still retreating. I'm kind of hoping that if he just sits stationary for a while, that Hardee's supply situation will improve. And we've also got the supply depot still building here at Covington. And he should be within range to draw from that once it completes. Of course, once it completes, it still needs to populate with all the actual supplies in it, too. So that's not going to be a real quick situation. I wonder if it would be better just to bring him across. I wonder if he gets a little bit better supply simply being in a Confederate state. I bet he does. And it'll probably improve his readiness too. Let's go ahead and bring you back down into Covington. How's Hill doing? Not great. Well, his attrition, I mean, he's still got 1,000 disabled, but, frankly, he's doing a little bit better than I thought he would. He's still going slow because it's winter. This market is almost done at Lexington. What was this message? Oh yeah, that was in Missouri. Oh, right. Our engineering corps here is supposed to be building a fort at Winchester. Just completed the Lexington market. That's good. Hardee's back down in Covington. How's our other engineering corps doing? Okay, this telegraph station is built, so it's time for Louis Hebert to run up to Batesville. Yeah, attrition. It's an engineering corps. I don't really care. Union goes with the Tariff Act. How are we doing on the policies? I think I'm doing Militia Act 3 now. Okay, just a few days left on that. When this is done, probably need to head back over to King Cotton 2 to improve ag subsidies and fill up that farm mech bar quicker. I think that's what I'm going to do next. Independent cavalry force over here. That's pretty... It's kind of unusual. I don't know if I've ever seen the AI do that before. 12,000 men. Estimated. And yeah, this corps is now drawing from 2 different supply depots. So spreading the demand between these two. I think that's good. I think he's fine right where he is. Determined morale, almost 85%. I've never known if eager or determined is the higher one. Okay, eager is the higher one because Hill is at 99%. So eager must be 90 plus or maybe 85 plus percent. Okay, so the Union implements the Medal of Honor. Okay. Whatever. It's been a few days. Let's see if our Confederate rifles are done. Yes. Okay, I'm going to do it. And now that that is done, let's order some Confederate rifles. Yeah. So that's these two. Yeah. Fayetteville, 500 yard. Ooh, these are expensive. I don't think I'm going to be buying 50,000 a piece of these. So I'm building medium-sized infantry brigades as a default. So 10,000 basically is just about right without too much wastage. So I'm going to do 10,000 a piece. Now, the bigger the order, of course, the longer the estimated delivery date. However, it does get more efficient the more you buy. Like if we go 5,000 rifles, 93 days. So just a hair over 3 months. If I go 10,000, it's 110 days. So like 3 months and 3 weeks. So we're getting an extra 5,000 rifles for about another 3 weeks of delivery time. So that's pretty good. And it continues going up. You know, we add another month, but we get 15,000 more rifles for another month. So if you plan out far enough ahead, I think buying more rifles is, at least time-wise, it winds up being a little more efficient. I don't know if the cost does. Well, let's see. 7 million, 3.5. It doesn't look like the cost comes down by buying more, but it does get a little bit better for delivery time. And a little over 3.5 months. Yeah, I think 10,000 of each looks about right. Let's do 10,000 Fayettevilles and 10,000 Richmonds. And so these orders are now running in parallel to the big Springfield order we've got going. And how much longer do we have on those? Okay, just a little bit over a month before we've got 50,000 Springfields entering the inventory. That will be helpful. That will pretty much transform D.H. Hill's corps from kind of sketchy because they're all smoothbores to a bona fide combat ready force. And I did order a few artillery pieces. Those are 6, if I can find them. Yeah, okay, so we have less than 2 weeks until we get a few more. I didn't order that many. I should have ordered more. But we got a few more Napoleons coming in 12 days. We've got a lot more Iron Napoleons coming in about 2.5 months. And somewhere 14 pound James. Yeah, and we have some Jameses coming in 12 days. I should have ordered more of these at the time that I did. But I can't order them now until this order is done. Okay. Okay, is I mean, any better shape? Yeah, Hardee is. He's still not where he needs to. Okay, there's our Militia Act 3. Good. And that, in addition to the contracts, that does increase the size of the state's quotas. So that's helpful as well. And let's go right to I think it may be premature. I probably better not go to conscription yet. National morale -2. We can eat that. That's not a problem. I mean, we're at 99 for crying out loud. So that's not the issue. The issue is that the units themselves with draftee troops in them will have morale issues. And you know, you go into a tactical battle and you've got all these brigades, which are otherwise in fine shape, right? And they're wavering for morale already. And it's kind of a similar situation with bounties. Bounties will increase the volunteer manpower pool, but you get the same problem. The morale of serving veterans will be damaged, and desertions will increase. Volunteer units morale -5. That said, it's probably not as big a morale hit as the draft is. So if when I start in a few episodes to get a little bit more desperate about manpower, if that happens, I'm probably more likely to go to bounties than I am to draft. But for now, let's get some more ag subsidies coming in. Let's go King Cotton. And that will take 31 days, 32 days. Okay. Man, Hill's Corps is just trash for readiness on this march just up to Louisville. His attrition has come up a little bit, but frankly, he's doing better than I thought he was going to. I'll just say that. He's also picking up a little bit of XP just from marching. And oh, by the way, this corps, they have done a ton of fighting, and I looked off camera, I'm a little surprised at how few of its brigades have unlocked a perk. I think it's a little weird, to be honest. And not only have they not unlocked one, but they haven't really gotten that far. You know, here's Little's brigade, and I don't know, not even 25% toward a perk slot opening. Anderson even less. I mean, they're not even close. I think that's strange. I mean, these Fry's is the closest, and he's only like 50% toward a perk. This Cav unit has picked up some. He's actually pretty close. That's Forrest's old brigade. I had not noticed, but in one of the prior battles, this division commander, which was Steel, got wounded. I completely missed that. So the game automatically pulled Forrest up into division command, which is perfectly fine. He picked up a lot of XP and a lot of stars, so I got no issue with that. But then it just randomly picked Isaac Trimble to command the brigade, so let's do something about that. I think we've got some decent cavalry guys available. How about Villepigue? I don't know. I thought we had some decent cavalry guys. Randall will be alright. Let's see if we can sort them for cunning. Cunning's supposed to be good for Cav. Okay, so Chambliss is 1 star less for admin, but 1 star up in fame. And actually, Chambliss we had in command before, but I disestablished his unit. I'm gonna go with Randall. I kind of want Chambliss over in Virginia when we get some more cavalry going over there. Just kind of where he belongs. Okay. Chambliss was one of Stewart's commanders in the Army of Northern Virginia and the cavalry. Did pretty well, as far as I've ever read. I don't pretend to be super knowledgeable, but I've been reading about the Overland campaign recently. A surprising amount of cavalry fighting. I mean, cavalry against cavalry fighting during that campaign. Lots of little cavalry scraps, all during that campaign. And Chambliss did pretty well. Rosser did very well. Rosser's actually an artillery guy, but he commanded cavalry and was quite good at it. As were many of the Confederate cavalry commanders. In both theaters throughout the war. At least Hill's on the railroad now, so he'll get up to Louisville and start kind of reconstituting himself pretty soon. This guy's moving. Where's he going to? Kind of looks like he's headed toward Missouri. So is the Army of Indiana. Might get pretty hot for Sterling Price and Ben McCulloch over there. Okay, Hebert has arrived at Batesville. Time for another telegraph station. Oh yeah, still need to get that stupid fort going. $6.8 million. It's pretty pricey, but it's a hell of a lot better than 18 million. Now, what's our Yeah, 51 days. It's not bad. Okay, Harvey Hills arrived at Louisville. What was this? That was the Lexington market. Okay. And these are all just arrivals. Hill, yes. Aber, yes. Beckham. Yeah, that was Winchester for the fort. Okay. It's all fine. No, we just built something else there. Ah, yes, prison camp. Earlier episode, I was down here trying to figure out where my last prison camp was. And then I remembered that I had made a little joke. And so that prison camp was at Talladega. Or I thought it was. It looks like I didn't build it. Sometimes you're down here and you think you're placing a building, but you're not. So I wound up not placing that one. So I went ahead and built the Talladega prison camp a while back. But that goes back to, I think I've mentioned this before. At one point we were overcrowded, and so I paroled here with this button. I paroled prisoners out of this camp, which at the time was only a 1,000 capacity. We have fought several battles since then, and I have not seen any prisoners go back to any of our prison camps. I even came back later thinking maybe this is a toggle, and pressed it again. That didn't help. Right now, we don't have any prisoners coming into our prison camps, so that may be a bug. Now that I know I have 4 prison camps down there, we'll know for sure after the next battle, whenever that may occur. I'm kind of not seeking battles at the moment. Okay, we're into January, so I think we may have our troops here. We do. So let's transfer those guys up to Hardee's Corps. Okay, those guys are Tennessee troops. They need to go into Pillow's division. These are the Georgia troops, so they need to go into Magruder's division. And Forney. Let's put him in Pillow's division too. I don't know about that. No, we'll go Magruder. Right. Once they arrive up at Covington, then we can combine those brigades and so forth. Okay, so Hardee's supply situation is good. He's still undergoing attrition, though, because he's not actually in winter quarters. And his condition has dropped to poor. It would not be a good deal for Hardee to enter combat right now. Well, he's gone from poor back up to sufficient. That's good. So what is confident? Confident is, so he's at 79%. And we know determined is in the 80s and eager is in the 90s. So it's probably 90 plus for eager, 80 plus for determined, and I think it might be like 50 plus for confident, or at least 60. What is this? We built the Covington Depot. Okay, so this depot is done. And it is supplying Hardee, although there's nothing here. Yeah, there's not really much there yet. There's already a little bit of provisions. That's helpful. Okay. How many men and how much time until 2 days until those brigades get up to them? Oh my goodness. That re-enlistment rate has dropped from 10 to 7%. Not gonna lie. That is scaring the hell out of me for what's gonna happen in April. Straight up. It's just scaring the bejesus out of me. Well, we just built something else. Parkersburg Depot. What is that? I think that's that depot that we built here. Yeah, for Beauregard's army. How are these guys doing? Not bad. Okay. Every army is still going to have a fair amount of attrition, even in winter quarters. The winter quarters doesn't eliminate it. It just minimizes it. We're up to 91,000 in our volunteer manpower pool. I'm kind of thinking maybe I better start recruiting in earnest, looking toward April. Oh, we have a new, let's look at our economy and intel reports. Economy, A- credit rating, okay, good. Still the same amount of debt we've had for most of the campaign, 90 million. Recovery, mediocre and decreasing. This thing always goes up and down. I mean, you look at these graphs and the finance, they're typically all over the place. Or not. Looks like looks like both sides have just been holding, right here is campaign start. It looks like both sides have just been holding steady at 1.8, whatever 1.8 is, 1.8 billion, I guess. Well, maybe they're not wavering around as much as they used to. Interestingly, our population's private wealth has all the way through been significantly better than the unions. That's got to be good, I guess. I wonder what this little uptick was here. Some policy we must have done. I wonder if that's when I did trade deals. And we still have an enormous deficit here, over 500 million, and we're well over 300 million in our army upkeep. That's why at some point I'd like to start putting some levels into logistics reform, I think it's called. But I think we have other priorities before I can start doing that. Need to get some cav weapons, need to do some more recruit offices. Unemployment's pretty low. It's actually increasing, but still lower than the unions. We just had the one debt. So this would have been when we issued some bonds and took on 90 million in debt. We've only done that once. So has the union, and they did it right at the same time. Interest rates coming down for both sides, which means we're paying less on our debt, so our interest costs are not very high, and they're decreasing. That's good for both sides. Okay, so the union is taking in a lot more in tariffs because they took the tariff act. And they were already, of course, just the size of their economy, they were already taking in more anyway. But they got a big bump when they took that tariff act. Okay. It's land sales and income tax or sales tax, those last two. Let's look at the tariff act. I'm not taking an imminent. Now I would have to take the government funding first, but protects nations-owned industries, fewer competing products on the markets, relations with Europeans -10. I don't care about the European relations really. Imports more lucrative for the government. Protect the nation's own. So this might kind of boost our domestic industries. But I know that there's things that we have, that we have to import. Like coffee. But we'll make more money on it. And it's not like we're going to import less coffee. It's simply going to piss the Europeans off. I'm not pursuing European intervention anyway. I might go for this at some point. That may be a good idea. How are we doing on projects? So we can see here, we took Confederate rifles not that long ago, and we've already got some more filling up again. We could take cav carbines. I'm not going to. The point being, with the military 2 that we've unlocked, this military subsidy is kind of trucking along pretty good now. How are we on? Yeah, almost able to do another level of recruiting offices, which I think I will probably do as soon as this fills up. And then I'll pop back and get us some cav weapons here, medium range carbines. Okay. Oh, we didn't look at the intel report. Okay, so they're working on the Confiscation Act. Yeah. That's a pretty good one for the Union. I almost always go for that, too. It's a good move on their part. Their relations with Spain are still zero. That is so weird to me. Tell me about how they're doing with England and France. I mean, come on. 10,000 more recruited into 5 brigades. Okay. They formed another army, the Army of Michigan. 12 more ships started construction over the past month. They're building a ton of ships. The AI typically does. 91% morale. with a bump up recently. Okay. Recovering after the last battle. Intelligence indicates enemy is mostly defending. I don't have a problem with that. I'd much rather they do that than go on the offensive. However, let's keep in mind that defending, Evansville and Cincinnati are in Union states. So even if they're defensive, coming in and trying to retake those is probably still within the bailiwick of their overall posture. Okay. So not too much, actually no combat action going on there, but kind of a look ahead. Some plans made, a little bit of reconstituting of forces, taking a little bit of breather here in winter quarters, a much needed breather in the case of Sidney Johnston's army. Let's see, did he get his, he should have his brigades up here by now, I think. He does. Back up to almost 20,000 men. That sounds good. Okay. So here's the question. If I drag Manigault on top of Little, is that going to be a 12-month contract brigade, or is that going to be a 24 contract brigade? So let's just do a little experiment here. We'll go one way with one of these and go the other with the other one. So let's drag Manigault on top of Little and see what we get. Yeah, that's bad. The good news is it kind of magically armed all of those extra troops with Springfield rifles. So that's cool. And we got a nice big brigade here, but all those troops were on 24-month contracts, and now they're not. All right, so let's see what happens when we go in the other direction, and we will drag Huger onto Clark. Okay, so basically we just lost some Springfield muskets there, no big deal. And they remain a 24-month contract, so that's the way to go. Yeah. Although we did kind of get some bonus rifles this other way. Okay, let's find him some guns. Only 17 days left on the Springfield rifles. 25. I don't know if I have anything other than... Yeah, I got some Springfield muskets for him. That'll do for now. Okay. And then we've got... Alright, so this corps is kind of back up to snuff now. And if they come into Cincinnati, we've got a force in place now. Alright, so I feel a lot better about that corps. How is Hill doing? Well, he's at least going into winter quarters and entrenching. I'd kind of like to see his attrition start. It is coming down a little bit. There's a hospital effect, I guess. But, so now the way is kind of clear. Where if I wanted to pursue, again, this winter campaign of moving a corps up the river to Beauregard and retaking Grafton, we're finally kind of in a position to do that. I just don't know if I'm going to. But I think that will do for this episode. If you like the content, you like what we're doing with the campaign, or other Grand Tactician Civil War stuff on the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, perhaps even subscribe. But at any rate, thank you very, very much for... There goes the Confiscation Act for the Union. Thank you very, very much for watching. I do appreciate it.